we might have missed it earlier, but he did actually have to use a scan on this area to try and scout the Stargate. And so now we see he's gotten a Viking out, he's gotten Marines. However, he does a little bit of a miss micro here, and also a bit of the build order wrong, I could say. Many Korean Terrans, they like to go reactor on the barracks, and the reason why is because at this point you'll have the same number of Marines, but you'll be able to pump Marines much faster to defend against this early voidray stalker push. And you can also see there's a miss micro by this tank. This tank should be over here. If the tank is over here, it'll be hard for the stalkers to snipe it, and you can park the Marines on top of the tank with the Viking, and this will stop any voidray harass. As you can see here, he's getting unnecessarily harassed by the voidrays, losing HP on his Marines. However, he does end up deflecting this build, and you can see many Terrans often just straight up lose to the voidrays. You can see here, this is why there's a problem with the tank placement. It is easy for him to snipe the Marines, and now he can bring voidrays sort of across the base. If he had better micro and better build order, if he had the reactor here, he would have Marines over here. He would have maybe 3 or 4 Marines to defend this voidray. He would have some Marines to defend the voidrays over here, and you wouldn't have this problem, which you're about to see, is where he gets both of his Vikings sniped by the nice voidray micro by Equilateral here. So now I think we conclude Terran is slightly behind. Equilateral does have expansion up, and he is being and Preddy is being contained by voidrays here. So tell me, if you're in Terran's position, what kind of changes would you change in his reactions to your voidray build?
Well, it's important not to lose any Vikings when you're fighting voidrays, because the voidray harass only stops when you have enough Vikings to fend them off. And then when you get enough Vikings, you can actually scout his base with them and see if he has expanded or not. If he has expanded, you can just attack. And as you said before, if he had that reactor, he would have more Marines right now, so he can just attack and probably win, because as you may see, I don't have a lot of units right now.
If we actually go into Equilateral space, you can see he only has 2 sentries and a couple of voidrays, and I think he's about to warp in a couple of stalkers. And you can see scan over here, so he sees the expansion now. I think Terran makes a mistake at this point. He puts an expansion down and turtles. He should push with this army. In fact, he should have had a bigger army and then pushed with it, and he would win the game straight away here. So, if you guys are wondering, a lot of people, Terrans especially, well, obviously, on Team Liquid, are complaining that voidrays are overpowered, that they're way too strong. And I think later I'm gonna bring up some replays of showing how this particular build order, with slight modifications, can beat voidrays and will beat other Protoss builds as well. So it's not voidray specific. It will beat voidrays and other Protoss builds, and you can just run them over with your sort of Marine, tank, Viking army. Sometimes you mix in a Raven, sometimes you put in Banshees. So we see Equilateral noticed that he was noticed that the harass is finished, and now he's sent his voidrays here to destroy the destructible rocks. And this is quite a nice thing to do, because voidrays are really good at killing destructible rocks, and you can just add another expansion really quickly. So you see now he's got a critical number of Vikings, so he can scout his opponent, but he did have to waste a scan earlier. If he hadn't gotten his Viking sniped, then he wouldn't need to have wasted a scan. His scout wouldn't have been so late. As of now, Equilateral has quite a strong sort of economic advantage over Terran. You can see the supply difference is about 20, and a lot of the supply difference is in probes, so that means the longer this game goes on, the harder it is going to be for Preddy to come back from the game. And Equilateral's getting his 3rd expansion, really sort of sealing the game. And I think soon we're going to see Preddy's going to be forced to try and push out, try and do some damage. And we're going to see how really this isn't going to work. He should have pushed out a little bit earlier. I think in the Terran's position, his expansion timing was a little bit off. He should have either tried to expand earlier and defend more thoroughly with more Marines, or he should have pushed instead of expanding, which is, I think, the more common Terran option is just to straight up push. When you've got maybe about 10 Marines, 2 to 3 tanks, and a couple of starport units, that's a really good time to push, because as you saw, Equilateral only had maybe even half the supply worth of units, and Terran ground army is usually more cost efficient than Protoss army, though most of that comes from Marauders, so early game is slightly more even. So you can see here, Preddy's about to push out, doing a nice little trick with the Vikings, so sniping a couple of these stalkers, but he's given Equilateral a chance to macro up. You know, he's got 3 bases running, and you can pretty much clearly see this attack isn't going to work. So Equilateral sort of runs in, cleans up this force, and he's going to sort of go through here later. Yeah, there's no contest. It's 109 supply versus 65 supply now. In fact, he's got more supply than he does depots. So Equilateral, are there any comments that you'd like to make about maybe what Terran could have done, and maybe any mistakes that you made in your Protoss build order?
Well, I want to talk about the timing of the third Protoss base. I in fact don't think I saw he was expanding, but I can just make the third base even if he's getting army out of one base, because I'm already getting a lot of units. I hit, I think, 5 warp gates, so even if he's on one base and he's massing army, I can still stop him. It's not like he can just run me over.
Okay then. Well, I think to conclude, for the mistakes that Terran made this game was he didn't get a reactor in his barracks, he had bad tank placement early on, and he missed his timing to push against the Void Rays. This is common in StarCraft 1, maybe when you're first starting off, when you fight against Mutalisks from Zerg, it feels as if Zerg has this sort of overwhelming advantage against you, when in fact all he has is his Mutalisks, and it's exactly the same here. All Protoss has are his Void Rays, so if you manage to kill the Void Rays, or you manage to deflect his attack, you have to know that actually he's got nothing else, and then you can use this timing before he sort of macros up an army to push out. And final comments, I would say that thank you very much Equilateral for providing these replays. Hopefully in the future we're going to be doing more casts of both his and my games, though Equilateral's games are sort of much higher skill level than mine. I think Equi is probably about 1-800, 1-900 Protoss right now, and he could probably make 2k. So I hope you found this educational. This is still very early on in our video making, so please give us comments, please tell us, you know, how we can improve, what you'd like to see in our videos in the future. Always be mannered. I want all Europeans to keep up sort of the idea that we're all very mannered people, so, you know, say GG before you leave. And thank you very much for listening in. This is BR Tarog and Equilateral